Agenda Kenya tonight, Honorable Bilo Kero, former Member of Parliament, Mandera Central. Honorable Professor Margaret Kamar, Member of Parliament, Eldoret East. And last but not least, Felix Okach, Council Member, Association of Professional Societies in East Africa, APSIA. Good evening and welcome to Agenda Kenya this week. I am Jason Nyantino. Tonight's focus, the budget making process. And we want to know, is the process all-inclusive or is it just a boardroom affair? I've got a fantastic audience with me tonight. I've got people from Gilgil, people from Narok, and of course Nairobians, Karibu Sana. Probably before we go into the debate, Honorable Bilo Kero, can you just take us through, how does a budget in Kenya prepared?
The current system of making a budget, current because before the fiscal management bill was enacted into law just last month, the process of making the budget has been a very bureaucratic process, largely undertaken by the public servants in the treasury, with very minimal input. And when I'm talking about input, I mean in terms of structured input by the public into the process of making a budget. So what happens is that immediately after August of any year, they start the whole process of making a budget. And it goes on until June when the minister eventually reads the budget. So during that period, the Treasury is involved in a process of collecting information from various departments in the government, and that runs up to April, between August to April. And once they have got all the information they need, basically what the government does really in reality is to use an incremental process really of budgeting, where you know what was there last year and you decide this year how much to add in respect of each ministry, each department, and so forth. And so that has been the way. So April is when they have an opportunity now to get views from the public, and they conduct what is known as public hearings, which, as far as I'm concerned, really has been largely a process of a cosmetic process, because you go to KICC.
We do have public hearings, actually.
Yeah, there are public hearings being held across the country.
Do they announce this?
They announce it, they advertise it through the newspapers, that public are encouraged to come and give their views. But as expected, the views which are carried largely are the views of those who have the muscle, the lobby groups, the manufacturing people, the private sector guys, and those who really can lobby. And otherwise, as an individual, you can attend any of those meetings. Normally for Nairobi, for example, it's done at KICC.
Is it done elsewhere other than Nairobi?
It's also done in the provincial, in all the provincial towns. But like I said, I mean, imagine hundreds of people coming and giving their views, really, that we want this in the budget, we want that in the budget. At the end of the day, really not much of it really gets taken in terms of the individual views. And there isn't a way in which you can measure how much of those views have actually, how much weight those individual views will carry as a nation. And so it becomes very difficult to import it. And lastly, I think I want to say that much of the budgetary aspect about the fiscal measures or taxation measures is steeped normally in secrecy. And you will not know about it until the minister eventually reads the budget and says, this is what we are going to increase and this is how we'll raise the taxes. And so within those measures, then the government outlines how they intend to raise the revenue. But I think that is in the gist of it.
Thank you, Mheshimiwa. With that good introduction, we can take the first question of the evening from Christine Mwikali, who is a student. Christine.
Thank you. Okay, I think Kenyans would like to know, when the budget is made, what factors do you consider? Because the resources are not equally distributed. That's my question.
All right, so Okach, the budget that we saw it read out in Parliament today, she wants to know about the resource allocation. How is it factored into that document?
Let me explain the resource, then I'll come to also the background of the budget preparation. The government, as per se, collects money from the public, the way we've been told. You've seen the report, the presentation. So is the money from the public that is used to spend on public requirements. So budget aspect means that people will sit, ministries or lobby groups, and decide what is the way forward. For example, in constitution of the country, the section of the constitution which states that before any taxes are collected from you, Parliament approves that these are taxes to be collected. As you saw the minister talk about tax measures. So after Parliament has approved that the money can be collected from you, like payee, VAT, fines, and what they call appropriation in aid, all that is collected. You have approved that it gets collected. Then the preparation for expenditure comes in the way has been done. Then it's prioritized according to the departments, ministries, areas of major concern. So after that prioritization, they brought into Parliament the way it was brought, and then it is passed. Now, as far as the public is concerned, it is you to take initiative to get involved. Honorable Okera has mentioned how at the provincial level, those things are there. At the district level, they are there. Even come to the CDF preparation, which is another aspect of the budget. Locational level, you have to have a chance to bring your input, say this is what we want. What this road done, not road done.
From your experience,
Yeah.
does the public really participate in these hearings that we are talking about? Especially at the district level, down there. Do Kenyans come up to present these views?
The other day I was in a meeting of a local authority. They can call meetings and people don't come. So if they don't come, what do? People would rather attend a political rally or some fair where the MP is available to make certain statements. That's when they will come. But if ordinarily a chief calls, sends a meeting that, okay, there's a budget talk, there's something about CDF, come and bring your input, very few would turn up, most cases. But whoever turns up, that's taken up. But whatever input you bring in, it does not mean that it will be taken for implementation because it's going to compete against other needs. Okay. So technically, the public is involved.
All right. Mheshimiwa, we've seen the bureaucrats in the Treasury who are in charge of this process, like the budget that we've just seen today. Do you think these bureaucrats are to blame for the unfair allocation of resources? We've had these complaints before.
Thank you. I think as Honorable Bilgero has mentioned, the previous process gave everything to the bureaucrats, so you cannot blame them for what they were given to do. Because there are only 3 steps in the way the budget was being done. There was the step where the macro group, which is really the technical staff from Treasury, from the Ministry of Planning, the Ministry of Finance, and Central Bank would sit with KRA and come up with a policy of where guiding the budget, where the budget was going to go, using the policies, maybe the poverty eradication policy or Vision 2030, that was given to them. The second step is where the review was being done by the sectors, the various sectors come together and prioritize. It is at that stage that it's agreed that the envelope for the ministry A is this much, ministry B is this much, and then the ministries go away and sit as ministries and actually divide what is in their own envelope. That 3-point step actually excluded everybody else. So we may be thinking that they are to blame, but actually they were given that as part of their role. But the process is changing completely. The process is changing completely because of the fiscal management bill that Parliament passed last year, and the involvement of the public, and even involvement of Parliament is coming in. I want to say that even Parliament itself was not truly involved in the budget making process in the previous system.
All right, we are coming to the fiscal management bill. I want to hear my audience now in terms of participation in the budget making process. Any views from my audience before we bring it back to the guests? The lady, yes, the lady in a suit on my right.
Okay, thank you. I was asking if they took that motion to the public, how far are we notified to know? Because actually, as myself, since I was born in Kenya, I've never had being involved in budget making, and yet Mheshimiwa is saying that we ourselves, we are involved. There are some times we are called to come and contribute about budget, making the budget, but in future I've never heard of that. Is it because the communication does not go well, or what happens?
All right. There was a hand The gentleman on my left. Yes.
Nadhani swali langu ni juu ya hizo sessions zinatengenezwa za kudiscuss hizo mambo na budget. Nadhani wakati mwingi unakuta huwa wenye wanahusika huwa wanaalika wenye wata-attend hizo committees. Lakini unakuta watu kama vijana hawakui represented pale katika hizo committees, of which unakuta hii budget inakuwa ni borrowed money yenye sisi kama vijana ndio tutakuja kuilipa, lakini hatu participate katika kutengeneza zile matumizi. So nauliza itawezekanaje sisi kama vijana tukue involved in that kutengeneza budget?
Ukiona tangazo kwa gazeti, utaenda, you as a youth, will you go?
Sisi kama vijana wakati mwingi unakuta hatupati wakati wa kusoma hizo magazeti. Hatuna ile uwezo, hatuna fedha ya kununua hizo magazeti.
So labda waweke kwa radio, television, isn't it?
Vitu kaa hizo.
All right. Okach, you're under pressure here. Yes, the public doesn't know.
Chukua swali lake ya vijana, kuhusu vijana. Kuna ministry ya youth. Kuna vitu ambazo ziko hapo according to youth. Ukiingia ministry ya youth kuna vijana wa kazi, vitu vya vijana wa kazi. Hizo zote ziko hapo. Ni wewe kuchukua mstari mmoja ufike huko uone kuna kitu gani. Lakini ukikaa nyuma utaletewa, hakuna mtu atakuletea. And in any case, the young men of today squeeze wengi wao wako on internet, emails. Ukienda kwa website ya treasury, website ya planning, hizo vitu ziko. What it means is that the involvement of the public is there as far as budget is concerned. It's only that how it is brought in. As Mheshimiwa has mentioned, things like Ministry of Planning, the things like MDG goals, Millennium Development Goals, vitu kama Vision 2030, vitu kama sector requirement, agriculture, youth and the lot. Inatakana wewe mwenyewe you get involved and ask. Kwa mfano, I was involved in issue moja of CDF nyumbani. That's why nakwambia hivi. Because if you don't take one step, kuuliza sub-chief, because everybody in the country, you're responsible to sub-chief, sivyo? Endo muulize kuna kitu gani ya serikali imeleta, kuna kitu gani ya vijana, kuna kitu gani ya wamama, kuna kitu gani kuhusu barabara. That's how you get involved. Ndio utasikia kuna siku ya budget day inasoma, unaenda kusoma.
All right, thank you, Okach. Honorable, there was a question about how far should the public actually know, and I want to add, should the public actually be involved in this process, because it's a very technical process.
The public is involved at two levels. One, through their representatives in parliament. And this is the most critical one. This is why that fiscal management bill, which was passed last year and enacted last month, is critical. Because it gives your representatives in parliament the opportunity to scrutinize the budget-making process. 3 months before the actual the budget is read, from March, the minister has to submit, because budget is composed of, by the way, 2-3 aspects. One is the policy, and that is one of the areas that they are the ones who are best equipped to scrutinize, because when you talk of 2030 and economic recovery and so on, all those goals, national goals, because the budget is an allocation of resources towards achieving those goals, someone should be able to link the actual allocation of resources in any particular year to those goals. And that can only be done if Parliament is sufficiently, members of Parliament are given the time, given the resources, given the experts, and this is why that bill gives them that opportunity. Because then they'll have the budget office, they have experts, and they have the time also. So that when the minister comes to read, what he's bringing is something that already has been checked by members of Parliament to ensure that it actually meets the national goals. That's one. The second aspect, somebody raised very quickly, the equitable aspect, equitability. Right now, in the past, budget process has been based on political patronage, so that my location can get all the money at once. That's why you find one area gets billions for roads, another one gets zero money for roads. So that allocation process was always based on political patronage. Now, with this act, because the members of Parliament have to agree and scrutinize, that allocation has to be subjected to a process to ensure that there's equitability. So I think that aspect of participation is more relevant than asking ordinary Kenyans, can you come and give us your views? I think that is an academic exercise.
All right, thank you for that. This discussion continues after the break. Keep watching. Welcome back. You're watching Agenda Kenya with me, Jason Nyantino. Today, the finance minister presented his budget. But wait a minute, who did he consult and how did he arrive at that magic document? We want to hear more. My next question of the evening is from Joseph Chutu, who is a researcher. Joseph, your question.
Thank you. My question is very simple, and it is directed to the members of parliament. I heard you in the recent past arguing that you shouldn't be involved in the budget making process, and I wondered as a Kenyan, why? And we have refused to pay tax when you are earning huge sums of money at the end of the month, and in the budget making process, it's about taxpayers' money, which is the budget for. Thank you.
All right. Mheshimiwa, hiyo ni yako straight.
Thank you very much for that very good question. First, I want to ask us why we have parliamentarians. Why do we have parliamentarians? There are three major roles that parliamentarians must accomplish. Your member of parliament is involved in legislation, that is the making of the laws. He is a representative of the constituency, and he has an oversight role. The oversight role is the role where he scrutinizes what government does for you. So when we talk of parliamentarians scrutinizing or being involved in the budget-making process, it is part of the oversight. The problem we have currently on resource distribution and the complaints we have that resources have not been distributed properly are basically because of the non-involvement of anybody in the budget process. I mentioned earlier about the 3 steps that are currently used in the preparation of the budget. That does not involve anybody except the technocrats. So it is not them even to blame, but it's us who have given them the power to do exactly what they're doing.
Could you just respond to the tax segment of that question?
Yes, on the tax part, I want to mention that whether your members of parliament pay tax or not pay tax, first, their responsibility is to do what you have sent them to do. The payment of tax, they must do as part of the responsibility that every Kenyan must do.
By the way, Professor, where do you stand?
Jason, I stand on paying to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. Members of parliament will pay tax, but it is good to make sure that the law that makes members of parliament pay tax is done properly.
Please bring that motion as a member of parliament.
Yes.
You're a member of parliament.
By the way, currently the committee is about to finish its hearings on the payment, of the salary payment, the structuring of the salaries, and I think members of parliament are very willing to pay. Okay. It was not that they are not willing to pay. They are willing to pay. It was just how to pay it. Because when you also talk about corruption and you say money has been taken, you don't want even the salary of the taxes from the members of parliament to be collected in the middle of the year where it was not budgeted, and then we complain later that it was spent. Because when we talk of budgeting, it's a process of the revenue that has been collected and what has been agreed to be spent.
Honorable Kamar, just one more question related to the audience member. I've got this fear that if members of parliament control the budget-making process, you're actually looking for, you're sneaking in your control to increase your salaries, your taxes, and CDF.
Let me tell you where members of parliament are getting involved in the budget-making process. We are saying in the new bill, that is the fiscal management bill, that members of parliament be involved right from stage 1, which is setting of priorities. How do we get involved? By 21st of March, we are expecting the minister to come up with a policy, budgeting policy, to tell us globally, yes, from next year. He couldn't do it this year actually because we were in recess. But I sit in the fiscal analysis committee, and we had actually pushed him to give us a statement this year so that we can scrutinize him through the year. So an understanding of where the members of parliament come in will make you understand why you should actually support them in being in the process. Number one is in the...
Quickly,
yeah,
Professor.
very quickly. Number one is in the policy statement of the minister. When the minister has given the policy, the budget committee will sit and look at the policy and see whether in the global sense resources have been distributed properly and allocations have been done properly. When that has been done, the committee brings a report that will be adopted by the House. And at the point when the House is adopting, they will also make comments that the minister must take care of when he's actually going on with the next part of the budgeting process. Soon after that, there will be two things that will be going on. The public hearings will be going on, and at the same time, the different departments will be scrutinizing, will be preparing their budgets. At the end, at the point when the minister comes to read the budget, we expect that that budget is a budget that will have been contributed to by at least 211 people, in addition to the technocrats in the ministry.
In the treasury.
Yes, in the treasury. So at least you will have better representation, and you'll have better input, and you'll have more resources being distributed according to what your members of parliament will feel. Soon after the budget has been read, and this one is a very important, and this is a very important one, we will be expecting the minister to come up with a compliance report to parliament. The compliance report will be a quarterly report. The report will be telling us, first, how much revenue has been collected in the period, in the quarter, how much has been spent, which ministry has defaulted in spending, and which one has not defaulted.
Okay, Professor, thanks for that. Okach, are you for members of parliament? They want more powers.
I support one of the panelists who asked a question, says that members of parliament do not pay taxes. Why are they talking? We are paying the tax. They don't pay the taxes.
No, they pay some little tax.
Yeah, but they should pay fully. Anyway, that notwithstanding, let me give an example. Take even an ordinary person in your house, assume you're married and you've got, say, 8 children. When you have to make a budget on how much to spend on the rent, the electricity, the food, and the others, normally it's either the mama and the baba, sivyo. You don't come in involving watoto wote, including the maid, including the house servant. How is the budget going to be? You see what I mean? You get it wrong.
Introducing trouble.
Yeah. Now, when you come to the issue of parliamentarians now, you see, admittedly, they are in parliament, they are concerned about, we have elected them to look at our issues. But the budget of the country, as put by the minister the other day, yesterday, it was issues concerning with the salaries of civil servants, issues concerned with pensions, the debts of the country. You put a whole 210 people to discuss it, it's chaotic. I think that bill should not even be thought about. It will be chaotic.
The president, it's on the president's table as we speak.
Yeah, it is, but if I was in position, I wouldn't sign it. I won't. Because you see, planning, you need a committee which looks at all the issues, competing needs required. Once you look at the competing needs required, then you got a small committee which will now prioritize that this year, this is the salaries we're paying, these are the pensions we're paying. Out of Vision 2030, we are committing only this section. Out of Millennium Development Goals, these are the ones we're meeting because of budget limitations. Okay. But if you put members of parliament, everybody will come with his views. An MP from a given area, he will not be concerned with the MDG, he'll just be concerned with the issue of Kwake Peke.
Honorable Bilo, we must hear your views on this. Do you support members of parliament getting more involved in the budget making process?
Yes. I mean, look at it this way. First, it is not true that the whole House has to sit and really go through allocations to the whole country. And no, it's a committee. There's a fiscal analysis and appropriations committee of the parliament, which has got the mandate to go through the budget and report to the House.
Don't you think you've been invading the powers of the executive?
But no, I think you are not. What this bill does is to make the oversight role of the MPs more effective. Give it effectiveness in terms of that duty of the parliament. But it does not take away the responsibility for allocations is still the responsibility of the executive. They are the ones who propose this is how we want to spend, this is how we will allocate, this is how we will raise revenue. What parliament does through that committee is merely to look at that and make sure that it complies with the policies and the national development goals of the country. I think that's all.
All right, so my audience, the lady in a scarf on my left.
Is it that the MPs are not financially equipped to detect the problems in the budget? Recently, we saw the huge computer error in the delete that passed the MPs.
All right. I was expecting that. Now, another, the gentleman in tie.
Yeah, thank you. I'll be very specific. There are 3 arms of government, and the members of parliament main role is to legislate. They have just said that it's for them to check the executive. Now, the question comes here. They don't pay taxes. That one is obvious, and we know it. The other day, the madam has pointed it out. What I'm fearing and what the Kenyans are concerned about, the members of parliament, we'll have them, we voted at the mean. But then, how come that the minister, former assistant minister, Mungatana, who was expected to be with us here tonight, said, let the ministers and the assistant ministers be taken through the budget-making processes, which means, underscores, that they do not know how to do that. That is one. Number two, I'll be very brief. Number two, their work is to check, not to implement. I think this is where we are going, and I think what they're saying is unconstitutional. And we are pleading with the president not to sign that bill that is on his table.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll take one more from the middle row, the lady in yellow.
Mimi ningepata kuuliza swali kwa sababu unaweza pata mwananchi, huyo mwananchi analipia taksi. Na wakati wanaposoma hiyo budget, kwa sababu ninaenda kusoma hiyo budget, unapata huyu mwananchi bado anaumia kwa sababu hiyo budget itasomwa kama wakiendelea kusoma hiyo budget utapata hizo vitu haziko vile walikuwa wamesoma. Sasa ni mimi niko na swali. Kwa nini hiyo budget huwa inasomwa lakini naye hiyo budget huwa haifanywangi vile kwanga imesomwa? Hiyo ndio swali.
Follow up implementation. My last one, who do I take? The gentleman at the back in a tie.
Yeah, thank you so much. My question actually is, we are living in a democratic country, whereby we need also to have a democratic family, whereby if we are making a budget of a family, we need to involve all the family members. Now my question goes directly to the borrowing issue. When the government decides, or the ministry decides to borrow money for our budget, it's not them who are going to pay because they don't pay taxes. It is us who are paying. Who gives them the mandate to borrow?
I think before I take a break, Mheshimiwa, you'll respond to the last question, then we can move backwards and develop the debate. Why are you borrowing on our behalf and you're not paying tax?
The mandate to borrow is normally given by Parliament. It's given to the minister in charge of finance because that is the arm that borrows on our behalf. And it's always scrutinized. And that is why I continue emphasizing that the role of your member of Parliament in scrutinizing the budget is very important in oversight, overseeing for your sake what is going on in government. Whether your member of Parliament is a minister or a member of Parliament, they must be able to scrutinize what's going on. So the borrowing is done actually after scrutiny by Parliament and to the satisfaction of Parliament that yes, this money is necessary and we should borrow.
Thank you, Professor. I need to take a break. For those of you watching us from home, we have something for you. Should MPs have more say in the budget-making process? Send your yes or no to 8898, together with your name and where you're watching us from. We are back in a moment. Welcome back to Agenda Kenya with me, Jason Nyantino. As you all know, the budget for this year is out, and we are looking at the process that gave rise to that document. Is it inclusive or is it not, and how can we make it better? Honorable Kero, there was a question about capacity of members of parliament to scrutinize the budget. In fact, many of them sleep when this budget is being read out.
No, I think that was a good question. There is no effective consultation that goes on really now. From now onwards, because of that act, there has to be, but there wasn't. What happens is, in fact, the government consults IMFs and other international bodies more effectively than the business community or the ordinary Kenyans. But the point about capacity is very relevant.
You can
the members of parliament do not
tie it in with the motion by Mungatana about training.
Yes. Members of parliament in general do not have the capacity. I mean, members of parliament are people from various backgrounds and disciplines. They are not financial experts, and they cannot be expected to have knowledge of finance. So majority of them, over 90%, may not have that capacity. This is why a budget office has to be set up. This is why they have to have experts in parliament to scrutinize that budget and advise them. And I think even for the ministers, it's the same. The Minister for Finance does not necessarily, is not necessarily a financial expert. He could be, we have seen instances in this country where he was a medical doctor, he's an agricultural guy, and so all the ministers also need training. This is why it's not surprising that many things can happen. I mean, members of parliament can miss out on something. If you remember the Golden Bag, those payments of the export compensation were going on for several years before they were detected. In Anglo Leasing, when we were in parliament, for the first 1 year, those payments were all in the, nobody could see them.
So who is going to meet the cost of training these members of parliament?
Parliament as an institution, yes, you have to give capacity. You have to build capacity in parliament, and you have to train them. I think that is necessary. If you want them to be watchdogs, if you want them to provide oversight, they have to be trained and they have to have the capacity.
All right. Allow me to take my next question of the evening from Suleiman Musa, who is a youth peer educator. Suleiman.
Okay, thank you. I really appreciate the national budget and the whole budget making process. And I'm aware of several projects that were proposed from the last budgets, but they have not been implemented. You have the members of parliament, they have the oversight to see the implementation. Then my question is, then why have a budget if you cannot look into the implementation?
All right,
thank you.
Follow-up. Thanks very much. Mheshimiwa, as you respond to that, I want to give you a very long list here of projects which were proposed last year, and they have never been implemented. One is the construction of a fertilizer factory. The other one is a wholesale market for fresh produce in Nairobi. The other one, there was 900 million for business process outsourcing park that was supposed to create 10,000 jobs annually, all right? The project has not taken off. In fact, the government took back 500 million. They told us 900 million, then they take 500 million. Then there was another project, Industries along Lake Victoria, to manufacture leather items from fish products. In fact, the Treasury did not even release this money. Then lastly, we had the privatization of National Bank of Kenya, which was actually blocked by NSSF. Are we chasing a mirage?
Thank you. That question only emphasizes the importance of the fiscal management bill, because according to this bill, we'll be able to scrutinize performance ministry by ministry. In fact, we'll be receiving reports from the minister on a monthly basis as far as the collections are concerned, revenue is concerned. I want to touch on the issue of the 500 that you said was taken by government. Actually, the law allows government at the point of supplementary estimates to reallocate funds that are stuck, that are not utilized. But the question is why they got stuck and why they are not utilized for the purposes as the question says.
Does this information trickle to the public that there's a reallocation that has taken place?
I must say no, because I'm part of the public. And I must say that we have not been hearing this. And these are some of the things that we are capturing in this bill, that it is very important that we monitor performance. If a ministry has said they are going to have a fertilizer factory, we would like to see that implemented at the time that they have told us that they are going to do it. And this is exactly what this fiscal analysis bill is going to do.
I expect, Mheshimiwa, by now, because the budget was read today, I expect that before it was read, that members of parliament, you should have come with a list of the things promised last year which have not been touched. You people are just seated in the house. You're not telling the public, this was promised, this has not been done. Then you're telling us about oversight roles, Mheshimiwa.
I want to say that during the debate of the fiscal analysis bill, those are the issues that came up, that we all know in our constituencies that there are things that were promised and they were not done. They were budgeted for and they were not done. We have also been told that projects have been completed and they are not completed. So we are not running away from the responsibility. Okay. I can tell you, because of Parliament now being open, even to the public, the fact that we are now televised, you can see for yourself the kind of frustrations that sometimes go on between members of Parliament and government implementing units. So that is going on, and
Thank you, Prof. Even the live parliamentary debates, we are looking at empty chairs, the members of parliament. Okach, follow-up. The budget was read today. How should we ensure that what he said actually happens?
The follow-up aspect could be in two levels. Whatever the Minister of Finance has promised in various sectors to be done, it's important for people in those sectors to come up midway and say, we expected this road to be done, we expected this Lake Victoria fisheries some fisheries project Lake Victoria to start, we expected privatization to start, what happens? And in most cases, sometimes they are explained in one way or another, but it's important for us to check. The young people, these days, this country has got 60% youth who are computer savvy. And some of these things are in the websites or the ministry is concerned. The blog, you can put in a question, read it, answer, ask questions, and that's the only way of engaging them. Because if you sit back and you don't engage the ministry or ask them, of course I'm not from the ministry, but if you sit back and don't ask them, they'll keep quiet and come next year again, the same budget will be brought to members of parliament the way it was brought. So it is us to get involved. And these days involvement, as I said, in terms of either face-to-face, internet has come in, mobile technology, there's a whole lot. That's what I started.
Really loves internet, computers, IT, fiber optic. Now the lady on my left, on my right, sorry.
I'd like to say, as much as the youth would be prepared to join the budget, how are we supposed to do that? And the government is teaching us on how to cheat and how to steal. How is that?
All right. The gentleman on the second row.
I'm wondering how do you tell a mwananchi who's been digging all day to get involved with such a process, which they term as complicated? Is there a way that the mwananchi can be empowered so that they can be able to look through such a process?
Thank you. I think we also need to look at follow-up. Follow-up. The budget was released today. Follow-up. How do we get to the government? How do we ensure that government implements what it presents? The lady in front here.
Okay, I don't think we vote in our MPs to go and sit there waiting for the next. After 12 months, you start complaining. You should give the minister in charge time frame. You give him 2 months. After that thing is not done, you follow it up again. Instead of waiting for 12 months, then you do your next thing. You start complaining.
Asante sana. Very, very, very proactive. Mama, amevalia skafu nzuri pande ile.
Hii swali yangu nilikuwa nikiuliza, nimerudi tena kwa budget. Tunakuwa na budget, main budget. Tena inakuja ingine inaitwa mini budget. Na kama wakati huu, ukienda kwa maduka kuna vitu already zimefishwa. Ndio ikiongezwa, minister aki-announce hizo vitu zote wanatoa, wanarudi kutoa, wanatuuzia bei kali. Wanasema walinunua na bei ile ya sasa na wamenunua na ile bei ya zamani. Kwa hivyo sasa tunaumia. Ningeuliza kama serikali ingewezekana warudishe ile control of commodities.
Asante sana. Honorable Bilo, mini budgets. Let's start from her point, mini budgets, price control.
Very quickly, I think on the three last questions, they're all very important on follow-up. I think the most important way of empowering the mwananchi in terms of following up is to have a participatory system of government, which we don't have. You know, these things are linked. So when you hear all these debates about devolution of power, decentralization of government, all those things will make it easier for members of parliament to get involved, because then the resources will be allocated at the grassroots level. Today, when everything is centralized, it becomes very difficult for everyone in every part of the country to actually participate fully. The second point is that, again, the system of governance discourages us from actually ensuring that the ministers or the ministries spend the money according to the law. For example, if you go to a country like Rwanda, because the constitution allows parliament, it gives powers to parliament to actually pass a vote of no confidence and the minister automatically stands dismissed from his job.
The one who does not
Not
follow
perform,
the budget.
or who misuses money, or any number of things. If it
So
is
we don't
corruption,
have that
we don't
power
have
here.
those provisions. The best they can do is just to censure a minister, but they don't have powers. So I think some of those things require some change in the system of governance. But lastly, even the mini budget, I mean, it all means that in terms of the system of governance we have, that accountability, that political responsibility is lacking, because there is no effective checks and balances, effective way of really dealing with them, of disciplining
Kwa hivyo
errands.
mama ameuliza mini budgets.
Yeah.
Today unga ni shilingi 100. Next
Correct.
week 130.
You know, the thing is, I think Kenyans must appreciate that budget, in principle, is a political instrument. Some of the provisions which you see in the budget are just intended to make you feel good, so that the country, so that as a government, they look positive. So don't expect that everything goes smoothly up to the end. That's why you find many budgets. They say we don't raise taxes. 3 months down the road, you find a tax has been introduced. I mean, these things are done because the government needs to run. But I think unless we have
But
a
it's
system.
unfair
It's
to
unfair,
the
of course.
manage,
It's unfair. And the only way you can deal with it is to change our system of governance so that we can hold people accountable.
That means
for
a
their-
new
for-
constitution.
That means a new constitution. Ultimately,
Have
we
you,
have
have you
to change.
seen the committee of experts yourself to give them those views? I hope
We
you
will.
have seen them.
We will.
All right. Honorable Kamar, as we finish, there was a question about, this is a very technical process, and you're involving a peasant. Do you expect a peasant to participate in budget making?
Not the person, but the person has a representative also in the name of the member of parliament. When you select your member of parliament, select the member of parliament properly to ensure that he or she will be accountable to you as a person. So the involvement of the member of parliament, like through the budget bill that we are now talking about, will actually make sure that your own issues are taken care of. For example, somebody talked about the fact that members of parliament may be sitting down until the last minute. That is going to be a thing of the past. Because what we are saying is that on a quarterly basis, the Minister of Finance must give us the performance. We call it a compliance report from every ministry. And by the way, we now have the powers to withhold. You can withhold funds from a ministry that is non-performing, or a ministry.
That is according to the fiscal
That is
management.
according to the fiscal management bill. Okay. Also, if PIC or PSC has information that a ministry is not doing what has been recommended, especially investigations of projects that are stolen in the ministry, if you do not rectify that, the parliament now is going to have powers to withhold.
All right,
further
all right.
expenditure.
Thank you very much, and that is how we come to the end of Agenda Kenya this week. I thank my panel, I thank my studio audience for this wonderful debate, and all of you at home for watching. Before we go, your thoughts on this question. Should members of parliament have more say in the budget-making process? Send your yes or no to the number on your screen, 8898, together with your name and where you're watching us from. We'll announce the result next week's program, so stay tuned and watch it. And from all of us here, good night and God bless you.